But I just want to start off. We got a big guest in the cut today. We got Garry G, co-founder of Trench Life, or the founder of Trench Life.
Yes, sir.
And so we just really appreciate you taking the time to come out, rap with us for a bit. But yeah, actually, I wanted to start by asking, where did Trench Life come from? How did that originate?
So Trench Life, it started for me when I was playing professional overseas. So it was, I played my first year in Belgium, and then had some circumstances that I had to take some time off after that first year. And this was 2007, 2008. So when I took the time off, it was, what was it? It was some financial, I forgot what the word for it.
In 08. So
yeah,
that
in
was
08.
The financial crisis.
Yeah, the housing thing. I remember.
I forgot what they call it, man, but whatever. It was that happened, and when that happened, a lot of teams, because I took the time off, a lot of teams they wanted players who were consistently playing or whatever. So the time off hurt me a lot.
Yeah.
So I had to wait like 2-3 years before I got a chance to go back and play overseas, which was I got a chance to go play in Romania. And while I was there, because I was so glad to be back or whatever, I was just using these little I'd make up these quotes. And then, like, I think hashtagging was starting to come big around that time. So I would just hashtag it Trench Life. Like, for example, grind hard or whatever, hashtag Trench Life. And then at the end of that season, which was 2011, 2012, I was like, yo, this really helped me kind of get back on where I need to get to. And so I was like, how can I continue it? And, after some thought, it was like, okay, well, why not just wear it? So I looked into producing some apparel. I think these were the first ones that I came out with, the OGs. Yeah, so I had 2 sets of shorts. I had these ones, and I had a black, gray, and white pair, which basically just said Trench Life, and that's kind of how we started. And then we started like putting some shirts out to back that up. Then we went into like the beanies and all that kind of stuff. And that's how it started. And and then from there, we tried a few things, and obviously, based on how the market is and how. And what's in style and what people are into, you kind of have to adjust. And some years are great, some years are not. And now that I obviously have my own family and all that kind of stuff, it's kind of like it's a struggle at times because sometimes I had to prioritize my family first. Obviously, not sometimes, all the time. And then with the gear, it's kind of like something right now is kind of like more hobby than business. Just based on how my life is.
Yeah. It's especially difficult to manage like everything yourself, and you really started this from the ground and built it up. So that's good. But wait, I wanted to say you had to take like 2 or 3 years off between your first and second pro?
So I went to Belgium in 2007. Season ended like May 2008. And then I had to take some time off for personal reasons. And then, like I said, based on how things went, I didn't get back on until over there. I played in this league before it became it was a Canadian league, US league. Yeah, it was called the PBL. So it was between, there's 2 teams in Canada, and most of the teams were in like the Northeast United States, and there was a team from Puerto Rico. It was called the PBL, the Sus League. But
I know.
Yo, I'm not dissing anybody. Anybody that played in that league, like, I know a lot of guys that played in that league that went on to have like magnificent careers overseas. But if you saw them playing that league, you would think that just based on how the league was and how it was set up, that they were sus, but they weren't. It's just the league was sus, right? So it was a sus league. I mean, no disrespect to anybody who played in there or whatever, but after that, so I played that for 1 year, and I think the year after that, I came to St. Pat's to help Dion Williams, Ottawa Hoops. He was coaching the junior team at that time. I went over there to help him because for me, I was like, based on how my professional career started and where I was at that point, I was like, yo, if this is how it's going, I don't need to be like playing ball. I might as well get real about life, right?
No. The first couple years is crazy grind.
So I was like, so after that league, I was like, nah, ball's not in the future. And then I just grinding, I was taking little like government contracts here for different work and all that kind of stuff. And then I was still training, and I was actually still training with Ashwil. And back to Ashwil and I was like, we were really trying to get on for real. I remember one time he caught wind of a tryout for the Maine Red Claws, which is the Boston Celtics G League team. And it was like, you heard about it the Thursday, it was happening the Saturday. We had no whip, we had nothing, but I somehow talked my older brother into like letting us use his car, and he came along for the ride, him and his wife, because his wife has family in Boston. So it's like, okay, why don't we just go chill with the fam, and just go visit them because we're due anyways, right? So I remember that day after work, like 4 p.m., met up with my brother, drove to Boston, whatever, went to the tryout. It was, to me, the tryout was also sus, and it's not because the league was sus. It was because nobody from the tryout made it.
Wait, so they're just taking
basically, you had to pay. So
they're just taking money.
They had their team. Like it's a G League, right? Like let's be real. You had like an open tryout is not going to bring you anything spectacular that you already have, because you have guys from college, you have guys that probably played in the NBA and coming back down. Obviously, you know how it works in the G League. So for me, it was like, there's no way you're gonna take anybody, but we're trying our luck. But, you pay your fees, whatever. You went out there, you do the best you could, and I didn't see anybody from the tryout that was on the roster that year. But but I'm just showing you, like, that's how much we were like really trying to make it happen. And then after all that, it was like, yo, we pretty much did everything that we could in our control. And like after that point, it was like, just get on with your life, you know what I mean? And then that's exactly what I was doing, as I was saying. But then, luck of the draw, I met this dude in 2011 through Andy Waterman, and he was he's an old head from Romania. He's actually a big deal in Romania, but he was here. He lives in Ottawa, and he went back. He got a job as a coach, so he wanted to give Canadian players a shot of playing professional overseas, whatever. So he reached out to Andy. Andy put a run together. I went. Long story short, after a couple runs, I was one of the guys he chose to go with him. So like while I had some extensions on some on some of the jobs I was doing. So I was like, look, I had to make a choice, right? So I was 26, 27 at the time. So I was like, YOLO, man. I'm still young enough that if it doesn't work, I could at least come back. But I didn't. It was very unsettling to have started my career and then have it. I felt like cut short without me like being able to walk away under my own strength. So for me, it was like I had to get back. Worked out. I went back, played 3 more seasons, and I was good after that.
So you played 4 seasons total?
Yeah, I played. If you count the one in Halifax, it'd be 5.
Yeah.
But I use that sometimes, but I don't really, because it wasn't the same experience as the other 4 years. Because in terms of like finances, overseas was better. In terms of opportunity, overseas was better. In terms of professionalism, it's tough, but overseas was better, because overseas a lot of times they're not even that professional, really. Depending on the level you play at. So beyond that, but the experience was good. I met a lot of good people over there. I like to travel, which is one of the reasons why I started playing basketball. I like to go to different places and meet different people and see how they live and all that kind of stuff. So yeah.
So what's the biggest difference that you would say now? Like, I don't know if you follow like European ball now.
Right.
But what's the biggest difference you noticed when you first got in, like way earlier, and then now with people playing, like Canadians going? You see a difference, or?
It's definitely a big difference, and I think the biggest difference is that the talent level in Canada has increased so drastically, and now it's not like you're no longer the token Canadian guy. You're basically, Canada is now a hotbed for talent. So like you're on the same level as anybody else that's going over there, and you could look at that based on obviously Canada's track record now in the NBA,
right.
Like the level of talent that's there, and you look at the NCAA and levels like that. Those things matter, because when you go overseas, that's how your reputation is built, is based on what you've done on like a bigger scale.
Exactly.
So for now, I just feel like the talent level is far better. I mean, obviously there's been great players that have went from Canada and played overseas, but I think in terms of more quantity, we have a lot more players who are able to play and compete at that level. So that's the biggest difference. And obviously, with that being the way it is, I think the contracts are a lot better. The level of respect is a lot better, and also the opportunities to compete are more. Yeah, so that's.
Yeah, just to add to that, because like you and like Ashur were like some of the best players coming out of Canada, right? Like
respectful. I mean, within our own rights. I mean, if I went to St. FX, I would say I had three successful years there. We went to nationals 3 years in a row. We were in the finals with Carleton my first year. We were in the semifinals against Carleton my second year, and then my third year we lost in the semis against UVic. So I think I had a successful career. Ashwil beat Carleton in the semis. I think his last year, which was my first year overseas, 2008, and they lost in the finals against Brock. So I think respectfully, we've kind of like carved out our own lane within basketball. Like I was known for defense. That's just what it became because I won those awards. Right, it became that. And also I think Ashwil also won in our conference, and I'm not sure if he got it on the national level the year I left, but he also, so that's kind of our thing. So we
the defense. Yeah, you were defensive player of the year, right?
Yeah, defensive year, and I mean this is kind of like my bragging right here. Even though defense kind of seems corny, I'm not going to front I say it because it's like a lot of times the things you do don't show up on the stat sheet. So you can play a game and lock a man down. But on the stat sheet, you don't have any blocks, you don't have any steals, you don't have anything. So it's like the stats don't really speak for you, right? So a lot of times it's just based on who's watching the game and their knowledge and understanding of how the game's played. That's kind of how you gain your respect a lot of times on defense. And that's how it was for me. So. Yeah,
but that's just something to be proud of. Like defensive player of the year in the anyone right now.
That's facts though, because what was it? So the first two times they gave it, I got it. So that's kind of like my brag. The first two times ever in Canada, from my understanding.
Yeah,
like the very first two times the award was given on back then it was a CIS, but now now it's U Sports. It was given to me. So and then in my conference, the first three times it was given to me. So. And that's also, I think that also came from the strength of, I was a part of the national team program from my second last year in high school up until I graduated university. And there was 1 year in 2005 where we won bronze in Argentina at the U21. And the big part about that, the coaches and other people credited me for the work we did against the U.S. based on, I locked up J.J. Redick, which was basically the guy I was matched up against. And he was a big deal at Duke at the time. He was a big deal at Duke at the time. So I think that kind of spurred it along, like so that kind of like people started paying more attention to me defensively based on the results of what happened, and we ended up winning. I'm not saying we won bronze because I locked him up, but
you played a big part.
And it brought a lot of attention to that part of the game for me. And also, we ended up winning that game, which was we played the U.S. I think it was quarterfinals, and on that team they were pretty stacked at the time. They had Rondo was on the team, J.J. Redick was on the team, Rudy Gay was on the team, Big Baby was on the team. There's a guy from Connecticut. He was drafted, I think, by the Nets. His name was Marcus Williams. He was a point guard. He played at UConn when UConn was UConn back then, and he was on the team. There's a bunch of guys. A lot of them got drafted, but they didn't really last in the NBA, so their names aren't really sticking right now. But
those were college kids though at the time.
Yeah, they were college guys, so they're probably getting ready to go to the league, probably going into their senior year or their third year, whenever they left. So that's what it was. So playing against them and beating them to then qualify for what led us to the bronze medal game. So that kind of was a big deal for us. So
now that's definitely a big deal. Like representing the country is like probably one of the biggest honors you could get.
Absolutely, bro. Absolutely. Even how I got on the team was kind of like, that's just basically what it was. I heard about the tryout. A couple of my friends, this was in high school, the first time I got into the national team program. I was in high school. A couple of my friends were basically going to this open tryout, and we were just chopping it up. I think we were at Carleton playing, just scrimmaging with, because we used to scrimmage over there in the summertime, especially in high school. And we went over there and we were just talking. And I was like, yo, let me roll with you guys, because it was like the summertime, nothing was really going on. I wasn't working. So I went with them, open tryout, got selected from the open tryout to then attend the training camp, and then just basically just willed myself onto the team and made the team as a walk-on my first year. And then from that, based on the relationship I developed with the coaches, I became a part of the program. And, instead of like having to go through the walk-on or the open tryout every year, I would just be invited to the training camp. And then from there, I just earned my spot every year. So
Wait, so teams... So you locked up J.J. Redick. Like I'm still thinking about that because I remember him at Duke.
Yeah.
Like he was like a main guy at Duke. So you locked up J.J. Redick. So were NBA teams not calling you at this point? Because how does that not make sense to me?
I wouldn't say. I mean, that's just defense, and that's probably it wasn't. I don't think it was that big of a deal because, especially like it was in Argentina, right? So I don't know who was checking for who down there, but I don't think that it takes a lot to be an NBA player, and that's just from meeting people in my journey who are NBA talented players who ended up making the NBA, and players who I've seen play overseas that I've scratched my head and say, yo, how come this guy's not in the league? Because he's nice, and then just how I matched up. There was a lot of things that I lacked offensively that couldn't allow me to be competitive on that stage. But obviously, if you're looking for like role play, hustle play, whatever, like that's never. I don't think people make the league on that. You have to be able to do league things, make shots. Obviously defend, but have to be productive. And I think defensively, you can always find a guy that could lock up in the U.S. or wherever else. I think if they're looking for you internationally, they're not looking for you as a role player initially. They're looking at what you can do offensively first. So so I think I'm not saying that I was league material. I'm not saying that in no way, but I'm just saying like those are credentials that kind of like if I was an NBA scout looking for players. Those are things that I think I would overlook if I was looking at me. Yeah,
because but the thing about defense though is like I feel like nowadays it's slept on, but
definitely.
They don't realize that half of the game I'm actually having to play defense. It's not just I have to go play offense. Literally half the time I'm playing defense too. So like, if you can impact the game that way, it's still a positive. But yeah, like you said, like. Even Pat Bev, that guy was averaging 30 in high school.
Exactly.
He's coming in now. He's a role player. And we say, "Oh, this guy got no offense."
Exactly. So you have to. He had to adjust. And like when you look at Pat Bev now, sometimes you question like, why is this guy in the league? And that's real. And that's not on the strength of the fact that if you put him in a gym with non-league people, he could probably drop 40, 50, 60 effortlessly. But when you look at him as compared to like the guys who are dropping 30, 40, 50, 60 in the NBA, he's not at that level. But compared to everybody else, he's beyond our level. And that's what it is.
Because the thing about ball too, and I realized it a lot in university, is like, it's really like a team game. So you could be better than a certain player or whatever, but it's like they need to fit a role. You know, everyone has a role to fit, so it's like your best five might not always be the ones that's gonna just work well together, especially because it's one ball. So like, I don't know, just embracing a role is key to like being successful, especially as a pro and moving forward.
Absolutely. And that's just what it is though. Like sometimes you have to, doesn't matter how nice you are or how nice you think you are, you may be nice on this team or you may join another team with a different coach, with a different philosophy. And he's like, look, I need you to do this, this, and this. I know you can shoot. I know you could do this, but that could come after you do X, Y, Z for me. And that happens a lot. And some guys are able to do that based on just, for the sake of the team. And other guys are not, just based on the sake of like, well, this is my way. I want to do it my way. And guys like that, you know what I'm saying? Like, unfortunately, sometimes their career don't last as long as it should. And I'm thinking about one of my favorite players, Allen Iverson, who is, you saw how his career went after towards the end. He was unable to come off the bench or just even Melo, when Melo was going through his thing a couple of years ago, like, it's cool. Once upon a time, you were the guy that they needed to drop 30, 40, whatever. Now we need you to come off the bench, play some defense, grab some rebound, and let one of the other guys score 40. So, some people adjust right away, some people learn later, and some people just never adjust, and that's the end of it for them.
Did you play for any other club before Phoenix?
So I initially started playing, I guess, quote unquote competitive basketball I was first introduced in grade 8. And it was just another situation where some neighborhood kids were going to a Bobcats, Nepean Bobcats was a team then, Bobcats tryout. And, because we hung together, they was just like, yo, you might as well roll. You know how kids do with the homies, you roll with the homies. And went to the tryout. We all made the team. And what was it? I remember asking the coach if I could be on the B team because
that's crazy.
I remember asking him because at the time, like, I didn't tell my parents I was doing this stuff. So I just went, and then obviously they give you the forms and this is what the fee is and this and that. And I'm thinking of like, yo, how am I going to get this bread, right? So I was like, can I just be on the B team? Because then I would just be showing up for practice or whatever. And he was like, nah, man, obviously you're good enough to play on the A team. And eventually, obviously, I went home and like told my parents. So the reason why I was hesitant like I didn't really tell my parents from jump is because, you know, my parents were, I grew up in a Christian home, so they were strict. So it was basically church and church and school. So for us, for me, it was like, you know, I'm kind of like stepping out of bounds a little bit. So, but, you know, actually, when I brought it to them, you know, they're actually happy about it and they were real supportive. So, you know, that kind of allowed me to even like open up more to my parents. My parents always said, look, if you need something to be successful or whatever, you know, just make sure like, you know, you come to us or whatever. So that was a good learning point for me in that sense. And also, you know, but still the priority was always, you know, as long as it doesn't interfere with, you know, with your church and with your academics, then, you know, you're free to do it. So, yeah.
So how many people, like how many siblings did you grow up with?
So I have an older sibling, which I grew up with. I would say he's a year and a half ahead of me, and we were born in Jamaica. But when we came to Canada, my parents had a third child. His name is Neville. He's 12 and a half years younger than me. So he came along later. He was more like he was a baby. So like he wasn't really on like the same level of like communication or activities as myself and my older brother. I'd follow my older brother everywhere because he was kind of the guy I looked up to. He was the guy that he's a smart guy and he's always finding out ways to do things. He's very innovative. So for me, like tagging along with him like made life easier for me. So you know, whatever he always had a solution for everything. So yeah, so three of us grew up together. Neville came later, so he was more like somebody who was babied and taken care of, as opposed to as opposed to somebody who had to kind of like compete or I guess go through the trenches that me and my brother were at that time, if you may.
So what was it like growing up? Like, so you basically had your older brother for a big period of time, but the three of you, like, what was that like growing up?
Yeah, that was cool, man. Because I mean, based on how we were raised, my parents, you know, they always told us, you know, you guys have to look out for each other, you know, protect each other, type thing. You know, your brothers, you know. But I remember there was the difference between myself and my older brother, especially when I first started high school, was that he's an honor roll guy, so he's like a real book smart guy. I wasn't, and I mean, there was a point in my life where if I barely passed, I felt like I got a 90 or something. You know, that's just what it was. I'm not trying to be funny, you know. But I remember I was going to Bell High School in grade 9, but then my brother went to Woodruff, and I wanted to go to Woodruff in grade 10, and I remember like my parents when they saw my report card from Bell High School, yeah, they gave me a talk and they said like, you know, basically, you know, if you go to Woodruff, if you can't like be a good student for yourself, be a good student for your brother, because you know his reputation was like, you know, he's like I said, he's an honor roll student, so like he had the utmost respect of the teachers and his peers, you know. But when I got to Woodruff, like that changed for me because, you know, all the teachers thought like I was like my brother. Yeah. So I had to adjust, and I was like, yeah, well, you know, I listened to my parents, and I was like, well, I tried harder. You know, my grades got significantly better, and also I met a coach there named Adrian Cadet, and she was coaching the junior team at the time, and her thing was that I forgot what the grade we had to. I think it was either 70 or 75. So you had to maintain that average to play on her team, and it was like her thing was, you know, if you can't be studious in the classroom, I can't trust you to be studious or bright enough to perform how I need you to perform on the basketball court. So with those things together, it definitely pushed me to become a better student, and over time, it just kind of, you know, obviously made my parents proud. And then, you know, obviously, you know, it was like my brother didn't have to be ashamed that I was I was there. You know what I'm saying? So, so it was that was cool. That's how. So we grew up. Me and my older brother, we grew up for the most part, kind of like side by side. And obviously, we knew that Neville, being as young as he is, that, you know, at some point we're going to have to step in and kind of usher him along to make sure that, you know, once he starts going, that he gets the same opportunities that we got, and also kind of show him like, you know, how to move accordingly, so that, you know, the things that, you know, where I got hung up, you know, obviously with the academics, you know, I always push that on him, because of like, if you want to go where you need to go, like your grades need to get better. And there's certain times he brought home a report card where, you know, I would speak up on his grades based on like my expectations for him, based on what was put on me. So, and obviously helped him to improve himself as well.
Yeah, to even touch on that topic, because I remember like when we would be at Phoenix camp, like grade 8 or whatever, or even before that for me, because Neville had stopped hooping at Phoenix like kind of early.
Yeah, I stopped. I think I want to say it was
Ninth grade,
grade
maybe?
9. Yeah,
Yeah.
I want to say about grade 9.
So maybe like his grade 8 summer and stuff, and I would just always see like how y'all would interact, you know, because we were always watching you for sure,
Yeah,
because you're like pro or whatever, we're trying to see your habits, and then just the way you would be so hard on him and stuff like that, and it was just like at the time, it's not even like it's hard like where you're gonna
yeah,
feel away, but it's
yeah.
just like the level of expectations
Right,
is. I feel like probably without y'all, he probably wouldn't have been able to get to the point
right.
as smoothly because you guys, you know, showed him the right way and we're just hard on him.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. There's times where like you're right. There's times where I felt like definitely had to scale back. Because one thing I never wanted to do was be trying to encourage my brother or build him or motivate him in a certain way. But then I didn't want people to think that based on how I was speaking to him that was a gateway for them to treat him a certain way, right? So obviously, a lot of times I had, even after speaking to him, I would have to double back and making sure he understood that it wasn't like
personal.
It wasn't personal. It was this is what I experienced, and I'm basically sharing with you because I'm trying to help you avoid certain things that I had to experience, which is what I'm supposed to do as the older brother. So and that obviously to make him aware that because I'm your brother and I speak to you or a certain way, you don't have to accept that from somebody else if you don't feel like it's coming from a good place.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's even me. I'm in the same boat because my little brother too. Like he's, you're just trying to guide them through life. Like we kind of know the answers and stuff like that. So it's like when you tell them stuff, and it's like maybe they don't get it at the time. But like, they'll eventually they appreciate it, and you get to learn from it.
And that's an important point. Eventually they do get it. Eventually eventually the light bulb just clicks, and then they get it. And I'm speaking to that based on my brother. Eventually once he stopped playing ball, obviously and also another reason why I was so hard on him at basketball specifically is that I knew the shortcomings that people saw in me. I know what held me back in certain situations, and for me it was like, if you think you're gonna play basketball, I'm gonna push you because this is what's waiting for you, and if you're gonna get over these hurdles and be ready for them when they happen, this is what you're gonna have to do now. Yeah, so that's what that was. And like I said, eventually the light bulb clicked. He came to me one day and said, "Look, man, basketball is cool. That's your thing. I know you did it. I respect you for doing it, but like, I don't want to do it anymore. I want to play football. Football is what I'm really passionate about." And I was actually happy when he said that because for one, it was like, okay, so I don't have to be hounding you about getting reps up in the gym or whatever, because if this is your passion, you're naturally gonna go do the things to make yourself good, which is what he did. And to see him take that path and then just grow in the way he grew, becoming a leader and just doing the things necessary for him to be successful, it was good for me to just sit back. And after a while, you get to a point where you're like, okay, he's got it. You kind of just sit back and then play more of a supportive role. Whatever you need, I got it. Let me know, and then we'll just go from there.
Yeah, it must be like unreal for you to think, because like you just see like like my little brother's in the NFL, like talk about that, like from him coming up as a JIT and everything. Yeah. Did you ever think like this is how it was gonna be?
It was hard to see it in the beginning, and obviously just based on the fact that I never played at an NCAA school. My older brother never went to an NCAA school, and we didn't know too many people at that time who went Div 1 or anything like that and was successful. So in a sense, I didn't know how to get him there or how to help get him there, but he had some people around him that were doing stuff and going to the right places. And kind of like I said, like, out here homies having conversations on what they were doing. I'd be like, yo, can I go with you guys? There were situations like that where he was able to go different places, go to different camps, and then that got him more exposure and more notice until eventually, he ran into a guy who played at Cal, and for some reason, he was coming here to Canada to start his prep football program. They met at a camp, and the guy was impressed by what Neville was able to do. Because I remember having a conversation with him. His name is Coach Jeff. Shout out to Coach Jeff MacArthur. And he was like, when I first saw Neville without seeing him play, I was like, this dude is big, and he's probably like most big guys I've seen. He's probably clumsy and can't chew gum and walk and chew gum at the same time.
Yeah.
But he said like once things got going, he was thoroughly impressed for a guy his size, how he moved, how well he was able to take instructions and put it into play right away and stuff like that. So Neville came back and he told us, look, this is what it is. I met this guy. Coach Jeff reached out to us as well, and as I would like to say, the rest is history. He went down to Canada Prep Football Academy, which was in St. Catharines. He went there. He was successful. 2 years he played there, and started got attention. Got a lot of schools looking his way. But like to your point, was I think for me when I realized it could be real was when the first NCAA school reached out to me, and I guess Neville used to tell them to reach out to his brothers or whatever. And it was a guy from Maryland. He reached out to me, and he wasn't like sometimes when coaches are interested, it may be like, I think you're a good player, but at the same time you could tell that they're looking at other players as well. But there was a bit of a desperation in the coach's tone. Like he was hitting me up all the time, like, can you, if you guys want to come down for a visit, just let me know. We can make it happen right now, whatever. So I was like, it showed like, he was turning it. And then shortly after that, a lot of all the big schools now started calling. And then it was like, okay, so this is for real. And then, he made his choice. And then same thing, he went to Oklahoma University. From there, when he went down there, met with the coaches, they loved him. They loved him more as a person first, which is important.
Very important.
And I know that, and just from speaking with Neville, the coaches were like, their thing was, Neville, you keep doing what you're doing, listening, following instructions, and I guarantee we're going to be able to get you to the next level. You just gotta do exactly what we're trying to get you to do. And that's it. When they rock with you, they really rock with you, and they're gonna give you like the blueprint. That's why a lot of times you may see a guy, who's super talented, not have success because they weren't able to. They wanted to do it their way. They didn't want to follow instructions. They didn't want to, for example, like for say, stick to what the team or the coach required. It's more like they wanted the coach to do what they want him to do, but a lot of times you'll see a guy and be like, yo, how did this guy get here? He's not really that good. I'm not saying that Neville's not that good. I'm just saying, like, just for example, a lot of talented players miss opportunities because they can't adjust or follow instructions. And a lot of times a guy who is perhaps less talented in the moment will get an opportunity because, they're better prepared. They have the instructions, they follow the instructions, and they applied it. And that's a big part of anything you do in life is being able to follow instructions, to work with other people, sometimes put the ego aside and for the greater good, as opposed to, trying to get everybody to do something for you, for yourself. Sometimes you have to rock with other people. And
No, for sure. And even just like the way you're saying, like being a good person like that, and even just having the proper mentality, like
Absolutely.
being raised right, little things like that
Absolutely.
actually impacts like your sports career and things. Like it's not just about who's skilled. Like we're all on the same level.
Yeah, exactly.
Relatively, so it's like it's gonna be those little things that'll separate you.
Yeah. Even hearing what you were saying, like you didn't know how to get him there.
Right.
Even though you didn't know how to get him there, I feel like you were preparing him for when he did get there. You know, like even though it wasn't football related, like the things you were telling him basketball related, like you were being hard on him. Because eventually people are going to be hard on you. But
exactly.
Mentally, he was probably already more prepared than a lot of people because a lot of people don't have those type of influences in front of them.
Exactly.
He has 2 older brothers. You played European ball, so it's like he had things to look up to and to kind of follow. So it definitely helped a lot that you guys were in a position to tell him things.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that because even conversation with him, I'll give you another example. When he first got to Oklahoma, obviously the thing was, obviously for me it was like, okay, what's up? What are the coaches saying? Are you starting? Are you playing this year? Because that's what's next, right? And unfortunately, when he got down there, he was in training camp, and I think he got a heat stroke. And long story short, like he speaking to him, he's like, yo, this game is above me right now. The guys, they're bigger, they're faster, they're stronger. And long story short, he ended up redshirting that season, which totally helped him. Because if it was forced for him to go, he probably wouldn't have been that successful. And you know how it is. Like if you don't, a lot of times, if you don't get a chance to develop your skill as well as your confidence, that could break you early on in your career. But he was able to. The redshirt year, I think, worked a miracle for him. Unfortunately, under the circumstances that he was a redshirt, but it worked out for him because he got a lot of time to learn from the guys that were actually playing. He got a time for him to learn what the coaches need from him, and it also gave him a chance to build up his physical the way he needed to be. He needed to be faster. He needed to lose some weight, and he needed to get stronger in order to be successful. And then fast forward to his senior year, he's an All-American, right? And then again he's at the combine, running one of the fastest times for a guy his size, and then he gets drafted to who they consider America's team. Which is, regardless of how their season goes, you're going to hear about them, and their game's going to be on TV, right? So just by being consistent and just doing the things necessary, I'm able to see him on Sundays. My kids is able to see him on Sundays, or whatever. Yeah, man. Just to see that, even for Jesse, like Jesse, I've spoken to Jesse. Jesse's a solid dude, and I know him and Neville have a good relationship in terms of and that's one thing is that being able to share information between each other, to help each other travel the path. And now you look at both of them putting on for the city and the way they're putting on, and obviously like you said to the guys that Jesse played with, Micah being the level player that he is, he's now on the team with my brother, and then that's a connection there. Neville, Jesse, Micah, they're all connected through the fact, and that's Ottawa.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? That's Ottawa, just like that. You know what I mean? So yeah.
And we even just got a couple more guys drafted too from Ottawa, like
I know a guy, Luigi,
Jonathan.
But yeah, regardless, it's still insane that like two kids from the same high school, in the NFL.
Exactly.
And it just shows how it's just such a long game. Like
absolutely,
he redshirted his first year college.
Yeah.
You would think, it's shaky after that. Okay, guess what? Now I'm league bound. 4 years later.
That's the thing, like red shirt. Like when you think red shirt, you think like a sus. That's
scrub. If you have to red shirt, okay, I'm not good enough.
Like, think about it. Like when you played ball, the man that was red shirting, like he was just happy to be there. And that's no disrespect to anybody red shirting. Sometimes you have to red shirt to get the chance, because there's obviously guys who coaches never heard of, and they show up, and by the time they show up, you already have your roster set. So you got to sit out a year. But but sometimes like the red shirt guy is that he's a red shirt guy for a reason, right? So but man.
Yeah. Also, by the way, too, we could cut anything out if there's anything like that you said like and you want us to take it out, we can do that. Just in case. But yeah.
Back to, I want to talk about more about the European ball that you played. So what were some of your really high moments there, and then some of the low ones if you want to touch on that?
So I'd say one of my first high moment was getting over there. You know what I mean? Because at that point, coming out of university, it was like it's a dream come true. And on top of that, I've traveled for ball with Team Canada, but it was mostly through the U.S. and South America. I've never been to Europe, so to have and Asia, and to have the opportunity to go to Europe was like a big deal for me. So getting there and just be meeting people and running into guys that I saw on the TV. I remember the first league I played in, there was a guy there. His name is Justin Gray, and he was the 2 guard for Chris Paul when they played at
Wake Forest?
Yeah, Wake Forest. So that was his 2 guard.
That's crazy.
And the thing is, I played against Justin too with Justin and Chris Paul during my years with Team Canada. So to see him there, that was cool. And also another high point was I was going there. I was playing for a Canadian coach, and it was a guy that he played at UVic. He did the national team stuff too. His name is Tom Johnson. He played in Europe. Ended up staying there, coaching. So he, when I got there, he was like, he was paying attention to CIS at the time, U Sport, and so he said, I knew who you were, so it was like a no-brainer for him to take me and go play over there. So that was a high point. That also turned out to be one of my toughest experience, because when I got there, as good as I was, playing at St. FX, the success I had with the national team and all that kind of stuff, I was still not as prepared. And the reason why I say I was still not as prepared is because I never really I'm gonna say I was never really taught like half court basketball. A lot of what I learned, a lot of what I did on the basketball court, came off the strength of what I did on defense. So a lot of my points were in transition. A lot of my points were, you know, catching off the reverse and attacking the hoop. So I never learned to play in the pick and roll because I never really had the ball in my hand in those situations consistently enough to learn. So when I went over there, that was expected of me. A lot of the plays when the ball came to me on the wing was going to end in a pick and roll between me and the big guy, or end in you know, in me initiating a pick and roll while the secondary option, you know, guys coming off a screen, whether it be baseline or side or whatever, or 45. You know, I had to be able to make that play off the screen to set that up, and also learning to make the reads out of the pick and roll. I didn't have that knowledge, so I struggled heavily my first year, at least maybe the first 3/4 of the season, I would say, because eventually I had to learn, right? In order to stay, you have to learn. But, you know, by the time I learned, it wasn't good enough to make me be successful to the level I needed to be to play at that level consistently. So that was a struggle for me. And, you know, just watching yourself go from, you know, a player that you're very confident in being to being a player who now, you know, you're kind of like, you know, second guessing things that you naturally do, second guessing plays that you would actually look to capitalize on, because, you know, if it doesn't work, and on top of that you're getting paid, it's now a job, right? So like making certain mistakes, you know, could result in the team being unsuccessful. The team being unsuccessful, then the GM is talking to you about money, and then, or, you know, paying you or this and that, and then you're going to practice, and then, you know, there's a guy there who plays a position of you that's usually the same position as you. That's usually a telltale sign that, you know, the management is thinking about going in another direction. So just learning those things, you know, were low points for me. That experience was a low point for me. Some of my highest points though was after that year, I definitely became a better player. I was more knowledgeable about, you know, the stuff I wasn't knowledgeable about, learning to play in the pick and roll, obviously, and also learning where to, like, you know, obviously taking better shots and learning how to just, you know, play at a pace within the system, and learn to play at a pace that's dictated, you know, by the team and by the play, and not just by myself. So that was cool as well. And I think when I got a chance, like I said, I took that break, and then when I got a chance to go to Romania and play, I was a better player in terms of what I learned in Belgium, and then on top of that, you know, I think I had one of my more successful year that first year in Romania, because, you know, I was an all-star. I was top 10 in scoring. I felt like me again, and that's one of the reasons why I really wanted to go back, because the first season ended kind of abruptly. And I was like, you know, even though it went the way it went, I'm not satisfied, and I can't just walk away knowing that, you know, I had so much more to give, and I could have been a much better player. So when I got to Romania, even though it's not as strong league as Belgium, you know, it was a good opportunity to really show that, you know, I really I can be as good as I felt I could be. So that was cool.
So you played for the same team in Romania, like those 3 years, or?
No. So I played my first year. I played, and then I went back. I got hurt, and I came back home to have my orthoscope on my knee because I had a torn meniscus. And I went back and joined another team, and then played there for the rest of the season. And yeah, I played on 3 different teams when I was there. Okay. Yeah, the bottom line is I played on 3 different teams. Yeah.
But yeah, so you were saying, what's it called? So basically you weren't on ball a lot prior to when you got to overseas, and then and when I say on ball, it's like in terms of like bringing it up, coming off a pick and roll, making decisions.
Right? I wasn't.
That basically impacted you by the time you got overseas.
Yeah,
you feel?
yeah, definitely. So that's why, like, when I used to talk to people about going overseas, like, those are things I would tell them, like, learn to pick and roll, because they're gonna pick and roll. They're gonna pick and roll you to death overseas. Learn to shoot, because everybody shoots. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is gonna shoot the ball, and obviously learn to defend. And you have to learn to be a good teammate. You have to learn to interact with the local people, whatever language they speak. Try to learn something. You know what I'm saying? And they love that, and they would appreciate you more, and the team loves that the more they see you getting involved. If you go over there and you expect them to adapt to you, you better be Michael Jordan, because otherwise they're gonna find somebody else, and the chemistry is not gonna be there. So yeah.
Okay, so after ball was done in Europe, what was next for you?
So after I was done, like I was in a relationship with my then girlfriend, my now wife. So after my last season, and I had suffered a couple injuries at that point, my knees were pretty beat up, and I was just thinking about what's next. And the next move was to start a family. And before that, I came home, I proposed to my girlfriend. She's my fiance, and then shortly a year later, we were married. A year later, we had our first child, and since then we're now on our fourth child.
No, but it's good to see.
Yeah. And my oldest is 7, so he's now starting to take an interest in sports. He's playing soccer. My oldest son, my daughter, she's the second oldest. She just started playing soccer as well. But my oldest son doesn't want to play basketball because all he sees now is Uncle Neville. So he's talking about football, which is cool. But my daughter, she said sign her up for basketball. I did the thing there. I guess Kobe did that where he asked, who's going to carry on my legacy, and then Mamba Sita said, sign me up or whatever. Yeah. So I did that, and my daughter's like, yeah, sign me up. So I say less. So so we'll see how that goes. Obviously, she's just starting sports now, like with soccer. So she still has a long road ahead of her, but I'm gonna give her a try and see if she really likes it, and then go from there.
Yeah, no, this was a really good episode. I think
we had the goal, one of the goals. I won't lie. Before we cut, though, I want to give you your flowers. Back when I was a kid and everything, I don't know if you know how much we used to look up to you, because you were actually you're one of the few pros that we know. So for the longest time, you were the best player I'd ever seen. So we appreciate you coming out. Garry G. Make sure you go check out Trench Life.
Yeah, I appreciate that, man. And I think for me it was, I didn't see myself, not that I didn't see myself as a pro, but I wanted to make myself available to people who needed whether it be wanted to train with me, because I always opened up the gym. You guys could always come and train with me, work out with me, do whatever. And that's kind of one of the things I wanted to do, is if nothing else, at least you guys could see what I'm doing, and hopefully it'll inspire you, and so on and so forth. As for the Trench Life stuff, I've taken a break from it for a little bit. It's just a matter of just some technical stuff, trying to figure out what to do next. So we have stuff coming, but just right now nothing is really available, even though I brought something for you guys. Yeah, I brought a little something for you guys. Just just some wristbands,
really,
and a keychain,
and
just something you could just throw on your gear or your wrist or whatever, if you want to represent. And and for everybody else, just stay tuned, man. We'll get to you guys eventually. And thank you guys for having me. I love what you guys are doing. Obviously, shout out to the Road Game Pod. Check them out on all their social media platforms, or wherever they're presented at. I mean, I think you guys are doing a great job, and I think this is something that's good for the community, and good for guys like me who have something to share.
Exactly. That's what it's for, to give them, let them see from the OGs, But peace out. It's a great episode.